So this is a common meditation circle. You focus on your,
Yeah.
whatever you're going to focus, your breath, your posture, your whatever. Then your mind wanders, and then you recognize it wanders. Then you let go of the wandering, and you return back to the object, and you just loop. But that's working 5 different areas of brain circuits.
Oh, I see.
So you have the alerting. I call that like, where's the fire? Where your startle reflex. Your startle. So if I startle you, you instantly search for the new danger. But you can train your startle reflex to be sustained, concentrated focus, a relaxed vigilance. That's partially what meditation does, but sports, if you want to sustain your attention, keep your eye on the ball. Driving, you keep your eye on the road. You're looking forward when you're driving, right?
Yeah. Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time. So you're sustaining your focus on the driving, but it's relaxed. You're not just focused on the car in front of you. You're focused on the lane and whatnot. So you have a diffuse but narrow focus. Yeah. So what happens was this part, the default mode network kicks in, and that's where the mind wandering kicks in. And that's where Iman and some people were sort of reflecting back and saying, oh, this is what happens with my brain when it wanders. And then it triggered daydreaming. So apparently this visual triggered people's default mode to start wandering. And going back into their life like, oh, I used to do this, and I'm seeing this here. And what about the future? So it pointing out the default mode network triggered wandering.
Triggered the mode.
Yes, that was unexpected. And then I was trying to get people back into salience. What matters, what's important. To recognize your mind as wandering, now come back to what's important, not past, not future. Come back to the group. And I guess I failed. So then I let go, and I caved to the group and allowed the 20-minute break, or whatever it was. Disengage, and then brought them back. Reoriented everybody by shifting attention back to, let's get back together after the energy of mind wandering fizzled out. So this is a little more simpler. So instead of the other chart, the chart had like 5 categories. That's kind of hard to remember. This is a breakdown of 2. 2, so it's easier to remember. So you have default mode network, and then you have the TPN, task positive network, which is roughly simplifying the salience, executive, orienting, and alerting all into one network. So then you have a black and white framing for people who are borderline-like, because borderline's like simplifying black and white.
If you could know how the mind worked, so that you could make it work even better with a simple brain training exercise.
Simple.
The exercise is mindfulness meditation, and the following video will explain simply the current neuroscience research.
Now my argument is you don't need to do mindfulness meditation because people can get lost in that. You can just do things mindfully, or you can do things with precision. You do a practice, or even Kurt's like rolling the joints. He can do that mindfully. He probably does that mindfully because he's going to be wasting marijuana if he doesn't. So if he organizes all his tools and all the mechanisms of it and creates a structure that's building the muscle of the task positive network. It's just that by smoking it, it's weakening the muscle of his task positive network. But the process of making it is building the muscle of task positive.
On how the brain works normally, and how you can have the power to change it with mindfulness meditation.
Change it?
There is emerging
Magic.
evidence that mindfulness meditation causes changes in the structure and function of brain regions involved in the regulation of attention, emotion, and self-awareness.
All those benefits.
Functional MRI studies of the brain show that when someone is daydreaming or just not doing anything, our brains show consistent activity in certain regions. Some studies suggest as much as 45% of our time is spent daydreaming. These areas together are called the default mode network, or DMN. The interesting thing about the default mode network is that it involves parts of the brain responsible for thinking about yourself and rumination. Areas.
So rumination made sense in the clip. We didn't go into the meeting. We didn't talk about that the default mode network is self-referential. I mentioned that it's the fuel of the inner critic. So when your inner critic is ruminating about you, how terrible you are, and you're fighting all that, that's your self-referential thinking. So it's part of the brain that references yourself and how you are in society, how you are with your narcissist, and you can just ruminate and beat up yourself all within your default mode network. So if you want to quiet your inner critic, you can activate your task positive network by rolling a joint and then by smoking it, like Kurt's doing. Because it's hard to work your job while you're doing that, or I guess you can find a job that allows you to do that.
Well, you can roll them and not smoke them.
You could do that. You could do it as a business. See?
What kind of trippy stuff is that? Yeah, I just roll them. I don't smoke them.
I don't smoke. I mean,
People
some
do
people
knitting.
they want to do things with their fingers. That's what I meant. Some people
do
have,
knitting. That's my
to focus their
Same
energy.
thing.
If any of you want to volunteer to roll the joints, I'm happy to take them off your hands.
You guys, you know what? I'm going to step up my game and attack back.
That's
No,
Because like
invitation.
some people chew gum or they do something to focus their thoughts on something other than
It's training the
criticizing
mind.
themselves.
Yes, see?
Exactly. So that's what I was saying. It's not what you're doing that matters. It's just doing something that's a habit that causes you to redirect your thinking other than criticizing
That's
yourself.
concentrating. A
Oh.
light, smooth concentration. Like
Yeah.
driving is
It doesn't-
also a light concentration. You
Yes.
gotta stay focused or you're gonna run off the road. But you can't be so rubber gripping and so focused that you
White
exhaust
knuckling.
yourself. Yeah, white knuckling. So you gotta
Right.
balance out between white knuckling and just running into people.
Yeah.
So something that's a ritual routine that keeps you out of this default
A
mode network.
ritual. Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
trying to chew gum and walk at the same time, right?
Doing
If
it
that's
mindfully.
difficult for you, that might work for you.
You could also do it
It could be
mindlessly.
just like you.
But-
Right.
but we're promoting
To not be
mindful,
aware of it, but still doing it. Yeah.
task positive
Because
focus.
the example that someone gave earlier is he was driving, but he was daydreaming. So he wasn't driving mindfully because he got someplace and didn't realize he had driven that, didn't remember driving to where he, that a period of time when he was driving. So he was driving not mindfully, but you can drive mindfully and be fully aware of, the things that are going on around you.
You want the sweet spot. So you can daydream a little, but you want to be focused enough to keep your mind in that sort of
I
soft
didn't know you
vigilance.
could train your inner critic.
Well, you're
I
not
didn't-
training your
I
inner
mean-
critic. Your inner critic is in the default mode network. So when you're ruminating and you're trying to fight your inner critic, you're trying to train your inner critic, but you're fueling the muscle of your default mode network.
Okay.
You're spending too much time here, and the goal is to spend time in your salience network more, into awareness, to recognize when you're wandering, and to monitor, to not get attached. So when they say non-judgmental awareness in meditation, that's basically your salience network.
Okay.
So you build this muscle of just watching, and if you take a good LSD trip or something, you're in this state of just watching. It just puts you there. It doesn't build the muscle of how to get there because you're using a chemical stimulus. So, default mode network, still describing it.
which are correlated with some mental illnesses such as depression and anxiety. One of the interesting brain areas making up the default mode network is the amygdala, the region of the brain largely responsible for the fight or flight response, and is seen to be more active when people are stressed. Just as the brain has a default mode network when we are daydreaming or not thinking about anything in particular, It has an opposite network of brain
This
activity
network,
known as the task positive network.
TPN.
you get this, and this is a holy grail, and then you can just say you've made it. Not necessarily,
Ta-da!
but you can
Oh.
use the default mode network as an enemy and try to get this muscle stronger. And if it's balanced out, then you're okay. But if you have too much of this, you become autistic and have hyperfocus, and society, people around you hate you. So
I can
too much of
become
this is
autistic?
also bad. Well, you could try to train yourself to
Task
become
positive.
autistic, but autistic people probably have a strong task positive network.
Task positive network. Okay.
Or TPN, that is active
Wow.
during attention demanding tasks. Only one network can be active at any one time. So in summary, the default mode network can be said to be a ruminative network. It directs our awareness to the past and future while largely ignoring the present. And while the DMN can be
So a lot of meditations like saying, Eckhart Tolle, he says, presence, be present. He's always pitching presence.
Yeah.
That's his way of trying to weaken the default mode network, which tends to be obsessed about the past or obsessed about the future, because that's what makes ruminating exciting. If you just ruminated about the presence, how exciting would that be? Don't think about the past, don't think about
Ruminating
the future,
about
try
the
to
pres-
ruminate. Ruminate about the presence. No past and future. Try to do that.
That's a good thing, right?
That's nothing to ruminate on.
There's nothing to ruminate on.
Sure it is.
So
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
how do you ruminate on the presence? Just try.
it can't.
oh.
That's rumination
I-
is to process your memories. Your memories are based on past to try to predict the future.
Okay. Okay.
So rumination, healthy rumination, is trying to make sense of your unprocessed memories so that you can move to the future and you have a better predictive map, a better hold of what happened in your past and your present, so you can move forward.
Make adjustments.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's the benefit, the positive side of the default mode network. But people do it to the point where they try to avoid the future or they get stuck in the past. That's the negative side of default mode.
used responsibly
Okay.
for planning and organizing, we must be wary of the negative aspects of it. The task positive network can be said to be responsible for present moment awareness, being in the here and now.
So this is a good muscle to have, because if you're getting triggered in the here and now, and you can watch yourself in the here and now, then you can see your default mode network getting triggered, your emotional flashback. So then now you can have a gap of space to maybe make a choice. Instead of just acting out like in the past, now you can make some space, journal, maybe act out and watch yourself act out, or change something.
It is the action network. When the TPN is activated and we are in the present, there is no rumination, there is no worry, there is no past, there is no future, because the DMN is inactivated. And
There's
again,
only
one
now.
system can be active at any one time. By activating the TPN, we deactivate the DMN.
I'm not sure if this is totally accurate, but it's probably sort of accurate.
So the next time you feel down, or ruminating on events of the past, or worrying about the future, remind yourself of the power of the task positive network.
No, do not create an injunction. Create a daily practice of building your muscle of task positive network, of keeping your hands busy, of doing things skillfully, of slowing yourself down to present moment time instead of constantly jumping all over time frames like crazy. Something to bring you back to the present, something to bring you back to human time, not crazy time.
The TPN. All you have to do is bring attention, for example, to your breath, or a sound, or a sensation.
So breathing is grounding because you breathe in human space. Try to hyperventilate more than a couple minutes and see what happens. Or try to slow down your breath to like subhuman levels and see. You have to breathe at a human pace. And when you're listening to stuff, you're listening to nature that's at a earth human grounded pace. Physical sensations are at real time.
Such as the warmth of the sun on your skin. Then if you find that your mind wanders, as the DMN begins to take over, activate your TPN again by bringing your attention back to your breath.
So bringing your attention back to your breath, that's using the orienting to shift and sustain, return back to your object, return back to your objects, return back. A little simplified, but
Or sound, sensation.
good enough.
Experienced meditators have been found to have smaller
And here's upside. So people who have a regular meditation practice, I think there's studies that said 6 weeks or a couple weeks of meditation practice can have a significant decline of amygdala and more gray matter.
amygdalas responsible for stress. And so this change in structure of their brains means that they are able to react differently to the stresses and strains of everyday life. Research also shows that the more you practice
What else?
mindfulness meditation, the easier it is for you to activate your TPN and deactivate your DMN.
You have a bigger muscle to shift and focus and activate these other parts of your brain networks instead of just constantly mind wandering. And one point of today that I mentioned was that when you're mind wandering, you're letting the story capture your attention. So if you watch a lot of YouTube videos, you watch a lot of, you hear a lot of other people's stories, your mind is following the storyline. You're training your mind to just follow the drama. And when you're watching crappy TV shows, which have happy endings that come out of nowhere, your mind starts to expect that's the way reality works.
Oh boy.
Because you're programming your brain, you're programming your implicit brain of how timing works. How does time work? How long does it take to make it to happily ever after? And if the movies are just instantly shifting into happily ever after, you're reinforcing a fantasy. You're reinforcing that I'll meet the love of my life, and then bam, we're together, and then bam, we're happily ever after. Because that's the narrative of what you're watching. See? So then you have this delusion like this person, Allison Mack.
Just looking for one person. I've always been a people person. People used to come visit me in my house and say they were going to Camp Allison because it was like, it was a party. Everywhere I went, it was a party. But I felt very lonely. And I didn't understand why. That didn't make sense to me.
So she had a good codependent fawn. She was very socially outside. She was extroverted. Camp Allison. But she was lonely inside because she was putting a false front up front. Not being seen for herself. So then she had the fantasy of only one person.
And I imagined the idea of like finding the most wonderful husband and then feeling intimate and, finding that one best friend and then feeling like at ease
I've arrived
in my relationships, at least with just one person.
And then this is like, at least just one person. I'm only asking for one person to fill all of my intimacy needs, to know me, and it's only one person I'm asking for. Doesn't it sound like she believes this
Seems
bullshit?
reasonable.
It sounds reasonable, yes.
Yeah.
Looking for one person. And I didn't understand why I couldn't get that. I was so good with people. I was so good in a living room.
I'm so good being a fawn person. I'm so good at pleasing people. I don't know why I can't get just one person. That's all I'm asking for.
But I was so bad at intimacy. Structure where you are just diving into yourself and understanding how you relate to other people helped me to reveal all of these areas of insecurity, areas of just really basic confusion.
She dived into self-help and she learned to understand herself. Look how happy she is.
Or lack of attention, like things that I had just never thought about or looked at in myself. The Jeunesse tracks helped me open up and see so that I could start to build a relationship with me and start to be honest with me, and then practice being honest with all the people in the tracks with me. And then that expanded out and out and out into the rest of my life. And now I have the most beautiful friendships with people that go so far beyond anything I could have imagined. And I have the most awesome experience with my family, finding that one best friend and then feeling like at ease. But I was so bad at intimacy. I was just looking for 1%, for 1%, for 1%.
She's like a less intense version of that crazy preacher that I showed you the other day.
Yes. So do you think she made it? Where
I don't
do you think
believe her.
she is now?
I don't believe her either.
Why don't you
No,
believe her?
she's
Where is it?
chronically codependent and bordering on borderline.
Yeah.
I just
Why do you get that?
Just need that one person to do everything.
Yes. Just one person.
That is not fair. That's abuse.
So she created a bunch of word salad to make it sound like she's honest and loving and fixed her fawn self. And then convinced her that she's not obsessed over abandonment terror. And now this is a pitch video to try to get people into Jeunesse and all the other groups of this.
That's what it sounds like.
Sounds like a pitch?
No, she's
a pitch.
No, she's nuts. She's nuts.
That's
That's
she's
something
like a
that
less intense version of that pastor crazy eyes lady that we looked at the other night.
yeah, and this what
yeah,
she was talking
great.
about
No, was that
actually
the one I
came
said?
up in the in-person meeting today. Like, when is it finalized? Like, when do you know you've healed? And that's part of the discussion. It was like, it's a cycle. You don't, you just have to develop a behavior around healing. You don't get to healing as a destination.
No.
Okay, so Dick doesn't hand out diplomas?
Don't you get a
Darn it.
stamp on your head which says cured, and then you just walk out like a
If you donate enough and you do personal favors, maybe I'll make a diploma or certification.
So I'm kind of, what's the context of this chick? Like, what's the story? She's beautifully made up and she's got pretty hair and nice teeth, right? What's the story? What's she selling?
Does anyone know?
Healing.
See, no one looks at the
Yeah,
comments
she looks
and watches my recommendations of the vow. The Nexium.
I do my homework.
The Nexium cult. She was one of the head leaders that was branding women and creating a slave, sex slave.
Oh, then
she
I
was
was
a
right.
head sex slave recruiter.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah,
This
I didn't
person.
realize. I didn't notice her without some dicks in her mouth. So there you go. Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
No, she was on like Smallville, so she was a famous actress. But now she's in jail, I think.
Oh, good. Well,
The leader of the cult's in jail for 120 years. I think she only got like 3 or 4.
He was the hugest narc.
Yes, Keith Raniere.
Which cult was this?
Nexium. N-X-I-V-M.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
I remember that. I heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard of that.
HBO has a docu-series called The Vow. It's been out for like a couple months. But she was in it.
There's also a podcast.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
podcasts, all kinds of interviews. And she's fallen for that trap of one person, the codependent trap. Sounds reasonable.
I was being
on the
sarcastic.
And the fallacy is?
Run fast, run fast, run far.
Well, you're projecting
that's
all your
description.
issues onto one person. And that's also assuming you can't love yourself. So the
when she's
opposite
basically
side of
sitting
the
there
story is you're
screaming,
projecting your lack onto one person to fix.
Yeah.
And you're disowning your
Fix me,
responsibility to
goddammit.
love yourself.
'Cause
You
if
want
can-
someone
if
to understand you.
If I can fix you, you'll fix me.
See, so look at those eyes. So that's the toil. I think that's like just one person. You see those sad baby. painful, sad baby. But her tone is all happy, reasonable, but the sadness isn't coming out because she's tweaking it with language. And it's linked to the default mode network. So if you focus on too much wandering, then you can create lovely stories and just keep telling yourself stuff to distract you from sad baby or to distract you from your lack of intimacy. You just distract yourself with lots of language, lots of word salad, lots of distraction to convince yourself you're happier than you are, to convince yourself you've healed from your childhood, to convince other people that Jeunesse is the most amazing thing, so you can come to Jeunesse, so that I can hook you into a sex cult for Keith Raniere, and then I can brand you with a soldering iron or something, which smokes up the whole garage of burnt flesh. This is true story. And the brand was her initials and Keith's initials. That was even more amazing.
Marking your territory.
So that's an A and an M. That's Allison Mack. So there's an A. And there's an M. See the M? So A and M right there. And then if you go sideways, you look at it sideways, that's a K. And then there's a R right there. Or the R the other way. So that's an R.
Okay.
Right there.
Yeah.
So you got a brand of the Nexium's founder, Keith Raniere, and Allison Mack, who was the head of the slaves, of the SOP. Or no, DOS, dominant of something of submissives. They were actually called slaves. And this was one of the initiations. They just said, let's come to Allison Mack's house and then get naked, and then bam, you're going to get branded. And this person...
So that's somebody's skin right there.
That's someone's real skin. That's a photo of a real thing. But
Yeah.
this person is a person who was ahead of it.
Crazy girl?
Yes.
Yeah, I use the term person in parentheses because
she's likable.
Security areas of just really basic confusion, or lack of attention, like things that I had just never thought about or looked at in myself. The Jeunesse tracks helped me open up and see, so that I could start to build a relationship with.
But she's gaslighting herself. See,
they're always very articulate and well put together, but it's very well rehearsed. That's how they have to gaslight themselves.
It's rehearsed. It's well rehearsed. It's gaslighting. And she's an actress, yes. But not only is she an actress, she was the one that was the head of recruitment and torture and ideas of all that crazy stuff. Raniere did it too, but she was probably also just as vicious. And it came out of insecurity. This guy's supposedly the psychopath. And there's lots of clips in the HBO documentary. Because he had a full-time documentary person that recorded everything.
Yeah, they love doing that, don't they? They always love to record themselves. It's interesting that because there's no one home, they aren't able to hold anything internally, so they have to record it so that there's evidence. And I think that's perfect. And so when they get caught, it's great fodder.
For the more organized ones. Or he was pulling in celebrities and people with money.
Debbie would know that with criminals. Debbie would know that with criminals. They usually love to keep records.
And they sing a lot. They love to talk. Oh my gosh.
What is wrong?
So let's see. I don't remember what this is. Let's see what this is.
Everything in my body was going, don't do this, get the fuck out. This is not a good thing to do.
Oh, this is a story of her getting branded. So watch her shut down her emotion.
The other part of me is going, I'm a fucking pussy, I gotta be strong.
That's the don't be a victim. That was the new voice that was planted into her.
I'm feeling the most fear I've ever felt in my life. I sat down before my turn. I'm like, Lauren, I don't want this thing on my body. Oh, what's the worst part? What does it mean? What does it mean to be afraid? And she was literally EMing me just before I got branded.
So they turned gaslighting into EMing. So EMing stands for exploration of meaning. So it's a way you can go into a person's story and you change some of this meaning and distraction, or you relabel some of the meaning of a story, and that sort of fritzes the emotion, because now you doubt you had the read of things. So that's how they sort of navigated their emotions. So she was getting EM'd while she was feeling physical terror of about to be branded.
What's the worst thing that can happen? And they were telling her that she was thinking something different?
Let's see, what was she saying?
What's the worst part? What does it mean?
What does it mean to be afraid?
And she was literally EMing me just before I got branded.
What's the worst thing that can happen?
What's the
They
worst
told
thing
him it was
that
like a
could happen?
mountain or something. It was like a mountain and something else, they told him.
Yes, so that was the fake cell instead of the initials. But it's just, what's the worst thing would happen is putting you towards the future. And it's also putting you on a time scale to sort of... See, right now when you're in present, you're saying, oh fuck, I'm about to get burnt and hurt real bad. That's what you're thinking. If I EM you and say, what's the worst thing that could happen, now I'm getting you to think into the future. When you think into the future, now you aren't as worried about the present danger because you're distracted. You're thinking about another thing. That's the...
Skipped it.
That's the smoke and mirrors, using words.
I disassociated out of my body. And I lay on the table and I just like triggered a state of love. And I just thought about my son.
See, this is the freaky thing. So, once she disassociated, she left her body.
Yeah.
She felt love. Why did she feel love? Because the last time she had a giant painful experience was giving birth. So she associated the last time she dissociated.
Love with pain.
With the love of giving birth.
Wow.
Because her meaning making was fucked up by the EMing. And she was confused, so she was searching to find a link of this painful experience, and she found love.
And I thought about the moment when I was actually giving birth to him.
See, birth. She thought about birth because the same pain level and the same pain of the branding and the birth was the same. It's the only thing her brain could try to reference in the past that felt the same.
And all the other women were like, oh my God, Sarah didn't even move. Then I opened my eyes and there's Lauren staring at me lovingly.
You know, that brand was a really powerful moment.
And now she's reframing it. So Lauren, the EMer, the gaslighter, she's reframing it saying like, this brand is a powerful moment. You're powerful because you collapsed and you dissociated. And all the other girls are like going, oh my God, look, she's not struggling. She's totally immobile, accepting this mass pain.
Moment you saw with me and you. Yeah. You know, it's really beautiful. I cried. I thought it was.
And then now Sarah's agreeing. So Lauren's leading her, telling her, this is an amazing story. Sarah is confused because she's feeling about her childhood, feeling love. She's crying because she's remembering that. Now Lauren is reframing the crying into a beautiful experience, and Sarah's agreeing.
So beautiful. So beautiful. And Lauren. I have that same experience. It really.
And Lauren had the same experience, so this is rewriting on the fly in the middle of trauma.
It was. It really, really was.
They came out of that being like, holy fuck, I did it. I can do anything.
The upside of going through something that you didn't know you could do is you get this empowerment feeling. Tony Robbins does that with the firewalk.
I was just going to say that. That is exactly what came to mind. Yep, it's the firewalk bullshit.
Window diving.
Or window diving. Can you survive that?
What's window diving? When you dive out of a window, I guess.
Oh, physical window diving. She didn't think she
Yeah,
survived.
crystal.
See? So you have an upside that you see you're resilient, even though you break your legs, or hopefully you don't burn yourself too much from the firewall. Some people do. But she got branded. She didn't know what would happen after. So surviving it has a survivor high. You get adrenaline or chemicals. So then you can create a story, and then you can flip all the stuff. Forget your fear, forget your terror. Turn this into something magical. But then she had to tell her husband, and saw food, and it got ugly. But part of it is because they were trying to sell people on this.
And I've been out there peddling this fucking shit for however many years.
And so in essence, what a lie does is this. You're consciously taking shackles, putting it on your filters of the world.
And this is beautiful. He's talking about being honest by trying to semantically twist meaning intentionally.
And you have to run everything through that filter of the lie.
How do you feel?
Pissed and scared. Mostly scared. Because there's also the component of like, if this isn't true, like what I was doing, but like, how do I not, what's real? You know, they think it's noble to not let the fear conduct and inform their decisions. I'm like, look, if a bus is coming, you need to get the fuck out of the way. Fear is not a bad thing. It's a warning sign. It's a warning sign.
So they pull you into this cult, and they instantly sell this pitch of, I can help you not fear ever again. I can make sure you're never a victim again.
Victimizing you.
Then they start victimizing you because they taught you to distract your mind with all the different hypnosis techniques they were teaching. The mind control techniques of overusing default mode network to let your mind wander, to create a better story for yourself, to create a better story for everyone else. But you're not building your muscle of being a full human, of actually getting shit done. All you're doing is moving pieces of your story and other people's story to elicit certain moods and emotions and situations. Allows you to sell stuff, so you can be a great salesperson, yes. And you can convince other people, but it can be dangerous when it's led by Allison Mack and Keith Raniere, or other people, or support group leaders, or influencers, like, you know, whoever. He's going to try to teach the mindset, which I tried to cover last Thursday and also today, is you got to get your mental space right, because if your mental space is reinforcing you're broken, or other people are broken, your behavior is going to continue your old patterns. Or your behavior is going to act out and your inner critic's going to win. There's different ways of framing it. But here, let's see.
Why haven't you healed yet? I am impatient of being here. And I'm just like, damn, chill. You got like, you're going to scare the child. You're going to scare the inner child, which you're trying to heal. You're trying to work with the softer, vulnerable side of yourself, and you're being grumpy and impatient. You try to be calm, try to be patient. It's not just what you say to yourself, it's how you say it. It's really critical. If you are allowing yourself the indulgence of beating yourself up and being all angry and pissed off and frustrated and judging yourself and judging that vulnerable inner child, nobody feels bad when you're enraged with yourself except you.
So this is talking about, within this chart, that you're using your default mode network to argue with your other part in your default mode network. So And strengthening this muscle by getting mad at yourself. And ideally, sort of teaching people to be more salient, where you're just monitoring your inner child and trying to encourage it. But the more energy you're giving into judging your inner child, you're actually fueling that part of the brain. And you're actually trying to hurry something up, but it actually makes yourself more tense, makes the inner child more defensive.
Raging out, just furious with yourself. Like, you didn't do it. It's not good enough. Like, okay, dude. Could you not scream at that child, please? Could you maybe just not? Because you're scaring it. You're scaring the kid and it will just freeze up. Let the skill grow. But the skill won't grow. Like, you've heard the expression of a watched pot never boils. If you're staring at it going, when, is it now? Is it now? Is it now? Is it now? It's going to be never is when it's going to be if you keep doing that. Because that part of you that's trying to grow and develop a skill, it's just going, yeah, it's just freezing up. Enjoy the process. Enjoy your emotional literacy exercises. Enjoy that level of communication with yourself and try to relax. Try to chill. It's like...
So if you try to meditate and you're working on letting go and returning to your object, the goal is to do all this smoothly. How many meditators do you see that go, I must stay focused? You're trying to create the muscle of soft vigilance, of being able to do this stuff smoothly. But at first you'll do it roughly, just like any other sport or skill. First time you drove, first time you rode a bicycle, whatever, you're going to overdo everything. Once you find that sort of sweet spot, just like driving, people can like multitask because it's so autopilot.
A moving meditation. We could be at this for years. If you accept that you could be at this for the next decade, then you might find that it moves within months. But if you're being a crazed Westerner and be like, when do I get my results? You'll be like, everything just goes, and you get nothing. Everything just goes, and you get nothing. It takes as long as it takes. You're not in control. You can't bully this into working. You can't bully yourself into healing.
Why not?
Just put your heart and soul into the work today. Love the work.
Maybe you can bully yourself into healing. We just
Why would you
need
join
more
a
people.
cult?
Yes, join a cult and have everyone bully you into healing.
That's the
Maybe
way
you
to
can't
do it.
bully yourself. It's hard to bully yourself. But if you get 5 other people
Well, you
to
could-
brand you, to constantly
Yeah,
pester you,
and then
maybe you can heal.
You end up with pretty hair, perfect teeth, and a lovely backdrop. What's wrong with that?
And maybe that's what people want. They want a therapist to bully them into healing. But you need more people.
Quick fix.
You need a cult. You don't need one person. One therapist is not enough. You need a team of people to invade your life.
I just
to
want
bully
that
you into
one
healing.
person. I just want that one person.
Meanwhile, the guy was having sex with like all the women. Not all of them, but
Well, they
enough
have
of
to.
them.
Yes,
it's
Allison knew that.
That's the law.
Really?
She learned polyamory. She was recruiting other women for Keith, in addition to being part of the harem. Let's finish this off first.
Find a way to love it and love yourself as you're doing the work today. Love the work for what it is. It's not just what you say to yourself, it's how you say it. It's really critical. Enjoy the process. Enjoy your emotional literacy exercises. Enjoy that level of communication with yourself. Try to be calm. Try to be patient. Chill.
I couldn't get a better closer. He looks kind of crazy when he had that chill face.
Try to be patient.
I think it's also It's also interesting, like I put my inner critic on vacation like 3 weeks ago, and part of that criticism was like, oh, I'm not losing the weight that I want to lose. Like I still have this COVID weight. I was exercising every day, which was probably just more stress. And so when she went on vacation, I was like, that's, I can exercise 3 times a week. That's feels normal to me. Like I don't have to kill myself. Just a lot of things, right? And that's when stuff happens.
That's true.
Stuff happened. Magically.
When you let it go.
Yeah, when you let it go, when you stop like yelling at yourself.
We try to stop forcing it, it just flows.
Well, you let it go, but then you set up a more gradual, doable schedule. So you didn't just forget it. You were nicer to yourself, or you gave yourself a break. And then your unconscious gave you better ideas. So then it worked. Pretty good. Oh, this is a nice pointer, and I was trying to point this out in today's meeting. This is a podcast, so there's not any video. But
think out of the box. If there's one thing that you could do to, like, you'd want to see or just throw out there in terms of a revolution or a change in psychoanalytic psychotherapy from your years of practice, what would it be? Just radical.
One thing to change psychotherapy, what would be radical?
Stop listening to the content of what the patient is telling you and read the interaction.
That was today's meeting. That's what I was trying to get Allison to stop parsing out every detail about cause and whatnot. In particular, I jumped in with Iman's story. Stop focusing on the content and read the interaction using your salience muscle and also using your orienting muscle. You want to orient to what's important and you want to stay there. You want to find what's hot and stay there. What's hot for you and what's hot for someone else. If you get lost in the content, it's your default mode network. You're just trying to keep up with the story. And you're trying to... For Allison, she was trying to get cause and effect. So then she could say, stop doing that, or do this, or whatnot. That's part of, you want to heal or you want to get hurt. Right? Remember that? So, you read the interaction is reading the nonverbals, reading the state, reading the senses, using your senses to try to read the interaction. Now, Kurt could do that with Machiavellian skills. Except when he gets triggered, all that goes out the window. Then he stops reading the interaction and he just, everyone's borderline once he gets triggered.
What is he doing with you? What is he creating in terms of the relationship with you? How is he experiencing you on an implicit level? What is he asking of you on an implicit level? People waste too much time listening to endless stories and not seeing what the patient is doing with you, because what the patient is doing with you is what they're going to do with other people in their lives. And if they need therapy, something about what they're engaging other people in doing with them isn't satisfactory and isn't very adaptive.
Oh, God, that's good.
Yes. Oh. And do you know what the podcast guy did right after this? He just changed the topic.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
You didn't understand this perfectly worded answer.
That's
no story. Fuck.
Oh.
So part of that was when I was watching Gia, when Gia had her body language tense up or her eyes, I pointed that out. So I'm seeing how she's engaging with the video and what's happening in the meeting. Because that's just as much information as what she might say or not say verbally. And when Adria was probing Tony, I pointed out some of his tension and even though his voice was going, I'm cool, I'm relaxed, I'm fine, his body was tensing up. And Adria was also reading the escalation in his responses, nonverbals. And when Leslie was sharing her sad baby with the injunctions, I was noticing her sad baby tone, the cognitive dissonance between what she was saying and the tone of her voice and her body language. So how many people remember the visual that apparently is hard
My
to
hand's
remember?
raised, but it's kind of dark.
You don't need to remember the visual. The visual is just allowing yourself a reason to be nice to yourself. Because if you aren't nice to yourself, you're just reinforcing your mind wandering. You're building that muscle. When you build the muscle of your default mode network, that's where your inner critic and all your inner attackers reside. So you're giving fuel to the fire, even though you're temporarily squashing it. The more you can expand your consciousness into the earth, into other people, into your body, into relationships by using these other parts of your brain, then indirectly you're weakening your default mode network, or you're giving it space. So then your inner critic is less chaotic. You have a little more space and time, and actually it's probably just a time issue. Because the more you're present, the more you're in sync with real time, the better you can make sense of reality. And narcissists and borderlines probably inherently are naturally dissociated. They naturally are time distorted. Just being around a borderline or a narcissist, your time gets fucked up. They almost have like a time distortion field that just surrounds them. That anyone who gets in that field, you just sort of, when are we? What day is it? It's like
when are we? I love that. That's perfect. Yeah, that's like when I deal with that. When I have had to deal with my mother on occasion, you lose all track of time. You have no idea.
Because they're
and that's
so
actually
lost
the one
in time.
because that's they're lost in time because she can only see me as a 5-year-old. You can see the picture of me behind me in my well curated backdrop. That's how she sees me. I'm 5 years old.
And that projection, you fall into it, and then you lose track of who you are, where you are.
It's deliberate.
Deliberate by them, or just...
That is accurate.
What if it's not deliberate? What if it's just natural?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, if they're dissociated,
deliberate versus
it's not deliberate.
but hang on. Semantics is it deliberate or is it intentional?
Oh, deliberate versus intentional.
All right. Two can play the semantic word game.
Yeah. I mean, they're not in the present time, but yeah, I mean, whatever crappy way they are when you were 5 is the same you are when you're 45.
So Bachman says they take a photograph of you, and then they sort of Photoshop it,
the snapshot.
And that's it. That's all. They take that's it, and that's who you are, and that's all they got.
You want to disconnect yourself from the snapshot instead of falling into the snapshot. So that's where the snapshot is like a black hole where they want to suck you into that story of the snapshot. And if you want to fight against that, it's just like you fighting your inner critic. So they take your snapshot, which is 5-year-old, and you want to say, I'm not 5-year-old. But once you say, I'm not 5-year-old, and they're saying you're 5-year-old, now you're stuck in default mode network. Where instead you just, Vaknin's tool is, they take a snapshot, everything they complimented you on, you do less of.
Yeah, this is the mortification, isn't it? I love it.
Everything they don't like about you, you do more of. And then you just agree with them throughout it all, but just change your behavior to distort the snapshot of them and your behavior. And then they start spinning.
Completely.
Because they can't make sense of you now. They're trying to get you to fit into the snapshot. If you intentionally distort that snapshot, they leave. And you win. So that's a good ending.
I've actually you've actually got me around to this because I was always the no contact, blah, blah, blah. It takes so much energy. Your version is to get them to leave you. And I think that's a really more powerful tool. And then you end up being the good guy. They can be the guy. Yeah, it's much more healthy.
It's easier to let them Let them create distance. Hold your ground. Make them chase you.
Yeah.
Find their buttons. Actually, that'd be the next step. Find their buttons and then manipulate them for your benefit. Make
They're
them
not
your
complex.
slave.
Yeah.
They're not complex, they're needy, and they should be able to be manipulated. Haven't worked out that roadmap yet.
Just don't return a phone call or ignore a text.
Ooh,
That's
wait.
what you have to do. That's it. Or you just, oh, I'm sorry, you're just an ordinary, normal person.
Use like doses of abandonment or cold shoulder. That's essentially the technique.
Yeah.
Popular
Or
people
go out,
do that all
have-
the time. They just use cold shoulder, or popular companies, luxury companies. They keep themselves exclusive. Gets people chasing.